Good morning and welcome to Fluttercon Day 2. I hope you all are less jet lagged than I am. Coming from California is quite a ride. Today, we're going to talk about Dart, as you might not be shocked to learn at a Flutter conference. But I guess before I say anything more, I should wish you all happy birthday, because Flutter is about to turn 11 in another week. It's been quite a ride. Thanks to all the hard work of this room, we have built an amazing community and hopefully helped a lot of people along the way have better outcomes. If we have not had the pleasure of meeting before, my name is Seidel. You may know me from my involvement in Flutter. I helped start the project 11 years ago, led the team at Google, Flutter, and then Dart along the way. My history is that I come from being a software engineer of 20 years. I guess I'm still a software engineer. I still write a lot of code. I mostly started with web browsers, helped bring SVG to WebKit, later WebKit to Windows, helped with Chrome, helped start the Blink project. But I come from many years of just trying to help the world write more portable software. First on the web until I gave up on making it good enough, and we started Flutter. So I did Flutter for a long time with obviously a whole bunch of team, and I left about 3 years ago to start Shorebird, which we'll talk a little bit about today. But it was a great ride. Unfortunately, we no longer have Tim with us. He's still alive. But I don't think he any longer has that Flutter license plate. Last time I had the privilege of speaking to this crowd was Fluttercon New York. Last year, I wasn't able to make it this year, which was the first Fluttercon in the US and way less jet lag for me. It was great. But since we spoke about a year ago, a lot continues to change. We talked then a lot about history. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the future. In particular, we talked about how over the 10 years that Flutter had evolved then, we'd moved from being like an indie hacker kind of thing that you were coming to Flutter because it was new and interesting and amazing, to a world where most new Flutter developers are coming because it's already a part of their job. Somebody has already made that decision to work on Flutter for them. And we talked about this as being Flutter entering its business era. Google phrased it as Flutter in production. They had a great event almost a year ago now. And one of the things that was new to me from that event was that we'd known for a long time, back when I ran the team at Google, that Flutter was really popular in Play apps, but also stats companies are now starting to watch the App Store, and we've learned how popular it is for apps on the App Store. And accounting for almost a third of all free apps on iOS is no small feat. Again, accomplishments of this community. Flutter continues to see large adoption in enterprise. These are all new logos just from the last year, and another testament to its success in the industry. And Flutter, again, is increasingly going from an indie toy to a default, which you all are seeing, I'm sure, in your jobs. And the team has also been busy, and by the team, I mean the Google team. They continue to do what I think they should do, which is do the things that only they can do. Improve the core in amazing ways. It looks like we do have a lot of folks who are standing in the back. If you can move in a little, we may be able to help them. But today, so we're going to talk about the future, right? So we're going to talk about better development, how I'd like to another 2x, another 10x. Where do we go from here in terms of making development better for the industry writ large? I'm going to talk about why I believe Dart is the best tool we have for that journey. I'm going to talk about the missing pieces that I see and how missing pieces in our ecosystem, missing pieces in the offering a holistic story is the biggest next journey for me, at least. And Shorebird is my part of that journey, and then we're going to talk about how we can all help. So this is a slide, or a variant of a slide, that I showed pretty much every presentation that I did inside Google for that almost a decade, which is that my mission, and I think the team's mission, by extension, was trying to build the best way to develop for any screen. And I think we made a lot of progress on this with Flutter. But I think we can go further. I think we can do much more for development. And I think that that starts with good tools, or great tools, I hope. And when I think about tools, I think a lot about how the tools can help me, right? Help me to achieve my goals for the user, for the company. And I want tools that give me wings, not chains. I think this is one of the biggest failings in many of the tools that are on offer today, is that they maybe help me less achieve my goals and more help a platform achieve its goals. And I feel pretty strongly, as I have in the now decades I've been working on this, that portable software is the way. I believe the best outcomes come not from writing twice or writing thrice, but rather from writing something that I can take with me to all the places I need it to go. So as a developer, I want good tools. What does that mean? What's a good tool to you? Well, for me, a good tool starts with a strong foundation, right? It should give me something good to build on. It doesn't maybe give me everything, but it gives me a strong foundation. And then part of what has brought me through many of my tool changes across my career has been bumping up against ceilings. So a tool should give me great high ceilings to work from. Put in other words, or more concretely, a good tool makes easy things easy, right? Gets you most of the way to the finish line. Maybe not all, right? Certainly doesn't set you back. Like if I'm trying to build an app, I'm probably not starting with assembly, right? It's all Turing complete, but it's not going to get me very far, right? I want a good, easy way to do easy things, but also that hard things are possible, right? This relates back to the high ceilings, right? I should not be hitting performance cliffs at 10 customers or 100 customers or 1,000 customers. I need it to be consistent in its startup and execution speed. I don't know, one of the stories that I've told before that you all may know is that the first 3 versions of Flutter were actually written in JavaScript. This comes from us having been working on the web team, and we believed strongly that the experiences that were being developed for mobile phones should be written with the web. And so we tried, and we failed. We tried to build Android apps with web technology, and we were unable to build even the calculator or the calendar. Obviously, this was 10 years ago. The web has continued to evolve. But we would hit these ceilings of what was possible. And so I believe that hard things, which include, making the best Google apps, need to be possible. And so this is part of how we ended up with Flutter. I also need to believe that the quality can be possible, right? One of the things that commonly happens as you scale a team, as you work with more people, is the foot guns. Like, I would die a happy man if I never have to fight another, null pointer exception. So I've come to believe in type safety. I've come to believe in null safety. I've come to believe in having a reasonable foundation to build from. And finally, most important for this talk, I believe that good tools, I believe that great tools are portable. It's my code, right? I just spent a week making that, or a month making that, or a year making that, and I want to take that with me to my next project, to my next place that my users are found, right? The next screen that I need to go to, the next operating system that I need to go to. And finally, the last piece of portability is open source, right? Because even if you stop maintaining that, I want to be able to maintain that. Anyways, this all may sound a lot like Dart. You wouldn't be surprised that this is how we ended up with Dart. We hit the ceilings of JavaScript. We hit the ceilings of the web. We had to build our own system to write apps. As I said, I've probably told this story many times, but part of how Flutter found success was that Google believed in portable code, right? It's a web company. But they weren't able to get the portability on mobile. And so Flutter filled that niche. But you might not be surprised to see this sounds a lot like Dart, and that I have tried over my career to approach these things from pragmatism, not dogmatism. I don't stand here to you today as the priest of Dart. I'm not here to tell you that you need to use Dart. I'm here to tell you that I have again and again reaffirmed my belief that these are the best tools to bring us forward. Amusingly, I've had the, I don't know if it's privilege, but the quirk of my career to be both on the side of arguing against Dart and arguing for it. Back when I worked on WebKit, I was definitely in the camp of that Dart cannot go into Chrome because there was no path for 2 VMs to be successful within Chrome, right? If you ever load up one and you load up the second one, you're always using more memory. Anyways, I now have the privilege of telling you instead that it turns out that these tools are great tools. And I think the tools that we will help build the next generation of development with. Anyways, as you know, Dart is not the only option. We've talked a little about how we moved off of JS. We looked heavily at Swift in particular when we were starting the Flutter project. I think that if the Swift standard library had been open at the time, I think if it was possible to allocate a string on a platform other than Mac, we might have actually written Flutter in Swift. But that's not actually the problem, that's a symptom of the problem. The symptom of the problem is that, particularly for Swift, when I say that word, you hear the word Apple, right? Or when I say the word Kotlin, you might hear the word Google. Or some in this crowd might hear the word JetBrains. It's a symptom of the problem that these are languages and ecosystems that have a first among equals, rather than being truly portable. Anyways, Dart is not your only option, but I do believe it's the best option. And Flutter and Dart are far from perfect. I'm not going to go into all the things that I would like to change here. You know, I would like better JSON handling. I would like faster builds. Lots of things that I might like data classes. But like, I don't think that if we were to 2x the quality of Dart or 2x the quality of Flutter, I don't think that that's how we 2x development for the industry. Because they check a lot of the boxes. At least they do for me. And I think that where our next 2x, where our next big unlock is actually in providing holistic solutions for portable platform development. For example, I think games figured this out, what, 30 years ago? Right? There's multiple gaming ecosystems that you can buy into. You can pick up Unity to start, you can pick up Unreal to start, and they just give you most of the stuff out of the box. Right? Where is that for apps? Right? I want that. Anyway, so I believe that our next unlock is actually through missing puzzle pieces, right? So I think Google has done a really good job of providing us Flutter. Right? And it has solved our UI toolkit problem. Not everything, but solved a lot of it. But delivering value to your customers is not just a UI toolkit. Right? There's so much more that we, as developers, do to actually deliver that final product. And one of the quirks, I guess, one of the strange constructions of incentives was that I felt, at least when I led these teams, and maybe the incentives have changed, but at least I felt that I was incentivized to provide a puzzle piece that fit into Google's puzzle, right? Both inside and out. That the puzzle piece shouldn't be too big because it shouldn't be overlapping with other puzzle pieces and should fit really nicely with what other things that Google was trying to do. And that's all great and has led to lots of success for Flutter, particularly inside Google. But the problem is you don't have the rest of these puzzle pieces because you don't develop the same way that Google does. You develop the way that you do. And so we're left in a world where this is what you get. And you have to put together the rest yourself. Like, I had Protos on that last slide. Maybe some of you use Protos? Raise your hand if you've ever used Protos. Okay. 10 people in the room? Right? Like, maybe this has changed, but when I was at Google, JSON was not the default transport mechanism, right? Imagine if JSON was the default transport mechanism inside Google, how amazing the JSON support in Dart would be. Anyways, again, I don't believe that like Dart or Flutter is fundamentally at fault here. I believe that what the next big unlock for us, the next big unlock that I am questing after, is about completing the puzzle, right? There's lots of things that we could think, well, that I think are missing, that we could provide a better developer experience. I think that it should be way easier to install and use Flutter. I don't think it should require you fighting with Xcode for an hour to get going, right? I think you should be able to install and use Flutter to build for iOS from Windows. Why not? Right? Like, I think you should be much easier for you to share between systems. We share tons of code between client and server in our setup, but it's not out of the box straightforward. In other ecosystems, it is. Right? We can do better. And I think that these missing puzzle pieces are what give us that next 2x unlock, right? Double the size of the next Fluttercon. Allow more people to successfully use high-quality, portable systems. Like, we should be able to deploy client and server together. I don't actually know of any versioning solution that allows you to do that today with Flutter, but it should exist. Right? We should have easy ways for you to take your mobile app and preview it on the web, or send it to a customer's device, or send it to a colleague's device. Other ecosystems have this. Why can't we? And so to that end, this is one of the reasons why I left Google 3 years ago, was that I wanted incentives to align. I wanted my incentives to align with your incentives, not just the incentives inside Google. And I wanted to complete the puzzle. And so to that end, I started a company called Shorebird, where we had been slowly chipping away at solving puzzle pieces. So we were founded almost 3 years ago now, back in early 2023. We are still a small team, intentionally a small team. One of the quirks of our world is that I've worked in open source so long, we're 100% open. We do pretty much everything in the public. Most of our code is open source on GitHub. And we're just building towards this developer future, right? We believe that development can be another 2x better. And again, part of that comes through aligning our incentives with customers, right? Like, because it is not possible to pay for Flutter, and I'm not suggesting you should have to pay for Flutter, but I was called into countless meetings at Google, cloud sales meetings, because that's the way that you talk to an actual person if you're a business at Google, is you talk to your cloud sales rep. I was called into countless of these cloud sales meetings where the person on the other side of the table wanted to sign a contract with me, the Flutter team, right? This wasn't possible, never happened. Like, this is not how Google does business. But like, you as a business, whether it's with me or somebody else, should be able to align incentives to achieve outcomes, right? Someone should be able to sell you a whole solution. And so that's the path that we've been on. And we eat all of our own dog food. We use all of our own products. So we've been trying to fill in these pieces for ourselves and for others. Just a little bit better every day. And we are, of course, practical. We're not Dart zealots. We don't use Dart for absolutely everything. But we do use it up and down the stack, all the way from a compiler to a command line to servers to clients, all the way up and down. And we get a lot of benefit from that. We also announced, I think, yesterday, that we raised, because we're not the only ones who have figured out the idea that there's a lot of value in this ecosystem. Right? So we raised $3 million from Excel and a bunch of other super awesome investors, people who have walked some of the same path, right? Founders of Xamarin, founders of Firebase, to bring another level of development to Flutter and to the world. So the first of these pieces that we sought to fill in was the #1 most upvoted Flutter issue of all time, which I think is still open and still the highest, most upvoted Flutter issue. and is actually one of the most upvoted GitHub issues across all of GitHub in all time, which is code push. And if you haven't heard of code push, you're not alone. It's kind of a funny name, and there's different names for this in different ecosystems. But code push is the idea that you should be able to update your app on users' devices instantly, over the air. And this is just how applications work. I recognize not all of you work on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube or these giant apps that have built their own code push solutions. But this is just how the world works, right? This is how your servers work. This is how your web works. It's absolutely necessary if you're TikTok or if you're YouTube or if you're a giant bank that when your app has a bug, it is not down for 3 weeks, right? You need to be able to push now. And so we fixed it. Lets you ship just like all these large companies do. Prevent lost downtime, lost revenue. One of the quirks, or one of the nice things, I guess, of our system is that unlike others where you, say you use a web view, for example, for code push, you have to choose what part of your app to write in web view, because then that part is updatable. With our code push solution, you don't have to choose. You can update any line of Dart code. You can update every line of Dart code, although probably don't do that, anytime you want. We push, we roll back to all users instantly. Anyways, again, we were just trying to solve the next most important missing piece to unlock wider and wider ability of the industry to depend on portable code. This has seen a lot of success. So again, we're almost a 3-year-old company. We launched our first version of code push 2 and change years ago. It took us a while to really have a fully amazing product. One of the quirks of what we had to do was we had to write a custom compiler for Dart. We had to write a custom runtime for Dart, which is a lot of work. And so it took us a while. But now we have thousands of customers all over the world. We deliver tens of millions of patches every month. Importantly, one of the most common questions I get is, am I going to get banned from the Play Store? Does this work on the Play Store? It is absolutely explicitly allowed in your terms. This is, again, how all the largest apps work. The quirks of the terms are, 1, you're not allowed to deceive users, right? You don't want to sell them a toddler game and then magically turn it into a gambling app. Don't do that. That's actually a real example from history, by the way. Yeah, it's a longer story, but supposedly there was an app that was geofenced to certain regions that would mutate into a gambling app in those regions. Anyways, don't do that. Please don't do that. Anyways, you can't do that, and then there are technical restrictions. You have to use a virtual machine or an interpreter, and so we had to write an interpreter for Dart to make this possible. But we did, and it's great, and it works amazing. Importantly, we obviously have all the expected security features right. We never see your code. We can't update your apps. Only you can update your apps. It's all using your signatures, your private keys, etc. Here's a very quick video. I don't need to go into great detail, but I think important to note here is that, first of all, we make no changes to your code. You need to make no changes to your code to integrate Shorebird. It takes a couple minutes to set up. If you have a tiny little app or a giant mega app, same amount of time. All we need is we need to put a single UUID in your application so that we can identify it versus others, which is what that Shorebird init does. And then we replace, or you replace, your Flutter build call on your deployment servers with our Shorebird release call. Once you've done that, you've now bundled in our custom done Dart runtime, and you now have the option of using Shorebird patch to update, push the patch. So here it goes, Shorebird patch. Pushes the patch, goes live. And this little demo app has a little UI, but our system actually by default does everything in the background seamlessly with no UI, but you can add as much or as little UI as you like. And that's it. You're able to hot restart in production. Anyway, so that was the first big piece that we saw was missing. The second big piece was actually not something I expected to solve. The second big piece came from us eating dog food, right? We are a big Dart shop. We have over 50 Dart packages at this point. And we got to a point where our own CI was very difficult to maintain. We were using GitHub Actions. We write a whole bunch of YAML files. But we were having to copy our pubspec config into our YAML file config in order to track all our dependencies, et cetera, correctly. And this was just nonsense. We just couldn't keep up with it. And so we built our own CI solution for ourselves, and it worked well. It worked so well that we decided, well, maybe we should share this with our customers. And we did. They liked it. And we just, I think, last week, 2 weeks ago, we shared it with the world. It is now publicly accessible, free for open source. It works great. Importantly, it's a zero config CI system. Right, so this is doing tests and formatting, all that stuff you do on every PR. Zero config, we believe that you shouldn't have to replicate your config that you already wrote in pubspec YAML, that you already wrote in your codecub file, that you already wrote in your analysis options into your CI scripts as well. We should just be able to figure them out from your tree. It's Flutter and Dart only, which it turns out a lot of nice efficiencies come from focusing on a single system. Like, we have done no performance optimizations to our system at all, and we're already multiple times faster than GitHub, just because we specifically only target Flutter and Dart. Turns out when you write a thing for a specific purpose, we learned from Flutter that simple is fast, right? When we started Flutter, we started by forking Chrome and stripping it down to just the good parts. And the simpler we made it, the faster it could go. And we found the same thing with CI as well. We helped the Flame team move to Shorebird CI last week. They're the folks who make the Flutter game engine. And they were very happy at being able to delete their CI. You can talk to them. Some of them are here today. And they tell us that it made their CI 4 times faster, because we already parallelize things automatically. We make sure we detect and run all your checks correctly. Anyways, here's another small video showing an example. This one's even faster to set up, right? The other one took a couple minutes. This is literally 2 clicks. You could have Shorebird CI set up before I finish this demo video. You do 1 click there to install on GitHub. You do have to do a 2nd click to log into Shorebird, and you're done. And now all of your PRs just automatically run. Correctly configured. You don't have to tell us anything. We figure it out. Anyways, the point of this all is, again, that we are trying to imagine a better future for developers where portable code is the default. And we believe that the path to getting there is about building out around Flutter and Dart. And so we try to live in that future, right? So not all the puzzle pieces were there for us on day one, and we've been slowly building them out, adding them in, right? And we've seen a lot of efficiencies for that. We, as you saw in that slide, are a very small team, an intentionally small team. And we've done all of this with a couple engineers, in part because of the efficiency that having a single source base that's well-tested, built on strong foundations, works across all of these places. But we had to build a bunch of stuff. We had to send some patches upstream to Flutter and Dart. We've had to fix some bugs in Dart Frog. We've had to write a surprising number of server Dart packages. I was talking with a friend of mine about my presentation here, and he said, "Wow, you're really shilling for server-side Dart." Maybe I am, but we've also just been very successful with it. And another testament to how flexible Dart is in where it can go. We had to build a whole bunch of little API bindings just for server-side stuff like Redis and Stripe and stuff. But it all works. It works great. This is our way too detailed slide that shows some of our high-level architecture. As you can tell, we've written a lot of packages. Not all of these are Dart, but the vast majority of these boxes are Dart. And the server's real. Like, we serve over 10,000 requests per second. We, I think, bottom out most days at about 2,000 requests per second sustained, and we burst up to easily 15,000 or more. This is just a shelf server. This is Dart, right? I don't think we've actually by hand written 250,000 or 750,000 lines of Dart. Maybe we have. I suspect there's some generated code in there. We've written a lot of packages, a lot of Dart Frog, a lot of Shelf. And again, all in the mission of trying to fill in the pieces. But the good thing is that we're not the only people trying to do this, right? We're a community, right? We are an ecosystem built around these strong foundations that Google has given us. So we're not alone in this journey. There are a lot of companies trying to live in this world or try to sell into this world, or both. And this is great, right? Because no one company, no one person, can bring about this kind of change. But I do believe that portable code is where the industry has been trending for, 50 years? 30 years? I think we've had this funny blip in mobile, which has righted itself. But this funny blip in mobile where we wrote so many things non-portable for a while. And so you can live in this world too. Right? I think that if you want to live in this future, and say you're new to the Dart and Flutter community, which some of you are, I'm sure, the biggest thing that you can take home to your business is about embracing portability, whether that's Dart, whether that's Flutter. Because the biggest unlocks that we have seen, and I've been doing this a long time, come actually through the sustained effort towards portability and through the later unlocks of the people unlocks. So as we started to deploy Flutter throughout Google, it was not a mandate from the top. Sundar didn't say, thou shalt Flutter. Right? It came from individual teams having interests. But some of those teams were quite large. GPay was one of our first really large customers. They had over 100 engineers writing their Flutter app. And one of the things that was a surprise to me was that GPay told us, as their adoption went on, that Flutter had made them 3 times as productive. And that unlock was not just because Dart and Flutter were a modern system for them. That unlock was because once they had embraced portable code, they also had organizational change that came from that, right? They had 1 bug tracker instead of 3. They had feature teams instead of platform teams. They had the ability when someone on the, on one part of their app was out on parental leave, they could pitch it from somebody on the other part of their app because they weren't bridging across language boundaries. And so the message is that if large teams, large companies, like as you see, all those enterprise companies adopting Flutter and Dart can do this, you can too. You can live in this future. So that's the bulk of what I came here to say. I would like to build a better world for developers. I really believe we've made a big advance with Flutter and Dart. I still believe that Flutter and Dart are the best that we have to push forward with. This is not a journey that we take alone. And the biggest thing that you can do is help your companies to adopt portable code if they aren't already, and tell those of us, Shorebird included, what it is you need. Right? Because one of the dangers that we had working inside Google was that we were so exposed to Google's needs. But what are your needs? Right? We want to solve them. So help us build this future. Thank you very much for coming to the talk. I do think we have a little bit of time for Q&A if folks have questions. And otherwise,